Hello there, my sacramental mushrooms. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me for this little breakdown of the 3 words of the year that I've chosen for 2024. I have been working with words of the year for a little while now. Sometimes I also include quotes of the year, or affirmations of the year, phrases of the year, if you will. I remember in 2020, my phrase was pickle Rick. And if you know anything about Rick and Morty, you'll probably be able to read into why I chose that particular phrase. Pickle Rick was my phrase for 2020. And it ended up being very relevant because it was the year that the pandemic showed up in our lives. So I definitely needed to pickle Rick that year hard, okay? So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. At the moment, I've just got these 3 words that I chose in around mid-September that I want to talk to you guys about. But I might add more to that at a later stage. Working with words of the year has been a very interesting experience for me because I always go back to those words as kind of like a compass for the decisions that I'm making, for the paths that I'm choosing in my life, even the words that I choose to speak, the situations I choose to involve myself in or not, even the events that I choose to go to and the way that I manage my time, things that I want to do in my business, things that I want to do financially, with my physical health and wellness, with creativity, spiritual decisions. A lot of that can be processed through the lenses of the words that I choose for my words of the year. Words of the year are usually words that you choose as a way to help you measure and define what it is that you want to achieve. And words of the year can be attached to all kinds of different aspects of your life. So they become really, really useful whenever you feel lost or confused, because they really help you tune back in with what it is that you've chosen to focus on and how you want to behave and the kind of attitude that you want to take towards the year that you want to have. So I've really enjoyed working with them. The 3 that I've chosen this year are presence, zest, and vigor. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why I've chosen each of them and my personal take on those words and how I plan to use them to try and make 2024 into a really beautiful year. And if you're watching this in the future and it's long past 2024, maybe I'm even long past being alive. Who the fuck knows, chickens? But if you're watching it a long time in the future, all of the information and all of the ideas in this video still apply. This is about words of the year, not necessarily just 2024 energies, So I think for every single year, choosing some words to help us navigate and focus and kind of give a certain energy and a certain vibe to what it is we're doing for the 12 months ahead is a really good idea. So if you're doing that a long time into the future, then hello, I commend you, grab a beverage and let's get started. So the first of my 3 words of the year is presence. This is the first one that I came up with. I was really trying to think of a word that represented connectivity first and foremost, and actually kind of like being literally and mentally in attendance, if you see what I mean. So actually it's partly about mindfulness. It's partly about, being where I am in that moment, showing up, being fully present, as in being fully engaged, not being distracted, focusing on whatever the task is at hand, whatever event I'm at, whatever conversation I'm having, whatever action I'm taking. I want to be present in that. I don't want to have like 15 other tabs open in my head, which being a Gemini rising is sometimes a bit hard. But I think presence really sort of anchors me in to that fact that I want 2024 to be a year where I'm really conscious of what I'm doing, who I'm seeing, and what's actually happening, what I'm giving my power and my energy to. I think there's a little bit of watchfulness to the idea of presence, that idea of like being clued in, being awake, not being drowsy, again, literally or psychologically. And that really feeds into my idea of wanting to get enough sleep, wanting to get enough nutrition, wanting to feel like I have the ability to be fully 100% in something rather than kind of being like psychologically on the subs bench, almost like watching the game but not in the game. So presence has something to do with my energy of mind and my energy of body. And it's also about being really aware and really alert when I'm doing something rather than being sort of like half checked out. I think presence also represents a kind of calmness and a coolness, a stability. When I think about somebody being present, I think about someone taking on exactly what it is that is going on, what they're being told, what their next decision is, and really being fully focused on that in a way that would require them to be quite solid within themselves and not kind of like, I don't know, what's the word? Not sort of like darting all over the place mentally or emotionally, but really being kind of steadfast in what it is that they're doing. even if they're still in the midst of making a decision or figuring something out, it doesn't matter. There's kind of like a level-headedness to their demeanor and a kind of composure that I think is really important for me in 2024. I want to be in my composure. I want to feel that I kind of have a sense that I'm capable of being composed and I'm capable of being steadfast. And I like myself when I am in that kind of sobriety of thought and action that comes with the word presence. So as I'm linking presence to every single area of my life, I think that when it comes to socializing, when it comes to conversing with clients, with friends, whatever it is I'm doing, I think there's definitely going to be a sense that I am really a full part of the activity or the conversation. And that's something that I always strive for, but I'm really pleased that I can put more emphasis on it in 2024. I want to be alert. Whatever it is I'm doing, I want to be alert. Unless I'm literally in a situation where I am kind of like dozing in and out of sleep and I'm letting myself take some time away from alertness. If that's the case, then that's fine. And I want to be present with the dozy situation that I'm in, where I'm kind of like, whatever, I definitely want to be present there, knowing that alertness and composure and awareness and everything is not really the point. The point is that I'm dozing in and out of sleep and I'm having weird dreams and I'm not really doing anything for the day. Like, I don't mind that. I haven't chosen the word presence for the year because I want to be on it all the time and like I've had 15 coffees. It's not that. I'm definitely wanting to take rest and I'm definitely wanting to kind of like cool off and not be on all the time. But when I am on, I really want to be on. I want to have some self-command and I want to be sort of like quick with what it is that I'm thinking or feeling or what I want to do next. I want to be, like I said, in the game, I suppose. And so presence gives me that feeling. So all of that aside, another thing that presence brings up for me is connectivity. It's being with people. It's being in unity with others. It's feeling like I've come to the party. I think 2023 for me was a year of missing quite a few social occasions. Nothing too big or over the top. I still managed to make it to most people's birthday parties unless I was double booked or whatever. But I think there were a lot of other things, a lot of invites that I had, a lot of social occasions that I could have turned up to that I really couldn't because I was just so busy with work. I was grieving. I was feeling tired in a lot of cases. I had some issues in the later part of 2023 with illness, which I may share on the channel at some point, but probably won't. But a lot of my patrons know what's been going on anyway. So for all of those different reasons, I also wasn't very present in the literal sense, with my loved ones. I feel like I could have done more in that area. And I feel like also my communication anxiety, which I have spoken about on the channel before, really flared up in 2023. There definitely was that sense that I was finding it difficult to stay in communication. I was checking out for a lot of the time and I would leave messages unanswered for quite a long time. That kind of thing I really want to leave behind me. And in 2024, I want to come in with the fullness of my communication and the feeling that I am continuing on with conversations as they're happening, rather than feeling that kind of guilt and that sluggishness of picking something up several days or even a couple of weeks after the fact. That's really been stressing me out, and I definitely think that I provided ample warning to friends and loved ones that would be happening in 2023 because of everything that I had going on. And I don't shame myself for struggling with communication anxiety, because in my experience that only makes the condition worse, I will say, and so that doesn't help. But I think presence really provides me with that reminder that, like, as far as emails, as far as texts, as far as conversations, as far as continuing on with plans that we're making and like getting dates to people in ample time, I really want to try and bring that up to speed this year. I don't want it to be like 2023 all over again, because things definitely got a little bit murky and I definitely checked out a few different times, like I said, because of busyness, because of illness, because of grief, because of anxiety surrounding communication, when I feel like I've taken on too much communication. And if you want to know more about my communication anxiety, I will leave a video about it down below that I did to kind of like lay out what is really going on for me when I experience this. I've always been someone that on my channel and with my content is never trying to make out like I'm perfect and I'm fully individuated and I have no problems and I have no darkness and I've healed all my trauma. I'm not trying to make out like that over here, okay? I'm trying to be real about what's real. And I definitely have my issues. And I think communication can be one of them. So I also want to try and stay in the game. And one way that I think the word presence is really going to help me do that is by reminding me that just because I'm in communication with someone doesn't mean I have to be picture perfect and right on time and answer to everything and go really in depth with everything every time. It's better to just be on time and maybe have to clarify something again, or maybe have to pick something back up, than to procrastinate and deliberate and delay because I don't think I can send the perfect text right then and there, or I don't know exactly what I want to say in a voice note. I would delay things for several days at a time because I didn't think I had the perfect reply in mind, or I couldn't really gather my thoughts completely, or I felt like I needed to do a really engaged paragraph to reply to someone's really engaged message. That's not going to be happening this time. I think presence is more about timeliness for me than it is about being absolutely certain all the time of what I want to say, because that can lead me into this procrastination, sort of like analysis paralysis, where I then find that I've been 2 weeks not replying to somebody who sent me a lovely message or whatever, or wanted to know what I was doing at a certain time. And then I feel like, oh, fuck, I've done that. So that's something that I really want to work on and I really want to become stronger with. I think for me, presence also represents a kind of nearness to something. So if I'm interested in something, if I'm worried about something, if I care about someone, if I want to get involved, then presence is that nearness of myself to whatever it is that I care about. Presence kind of means that I'm close to the meat of the situation. I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm in it. I'm not feeling that I'm interested in something, but I'm pulled back from it. I'm behind a kind of glass partition emotionally. I'm not really involved. I'm not truly invested. Presence represents that investment. It represents investment of time, investment of focus and energy, investment of emotion. So that's another thing about presence that I find interesting as a word. And lastly, another thing that I wanted to say about presence before I move on to the next word is presence can also be about other presences in my life. So seeking out the presence of teachers that can help me, friends that want to connect with me, seeking out the presence of new friends with similar sort of interests or similar sorts of politics to me or whatever, opening myself up to the presence of others, not being sort of complacent, I feel like, with just the people that I know now and just the conversations that I have now, which are overwhelmingly beautiful enough. And I'm endlessly grateful for those connections, but trying to be a bit more present for other things as well, as and when I feel that I can, and not pressuring myself too much, because obviously having a public platform, sometimes there are many people that would like my presence and I can't always say yes to everything and I can't always answer to everything individually. So I have to have that boundary. But I think being open to the presence of other things and other people and other ideas in my life is part of it. And I also think that presence doesn't have to only be human. It's not only material presence, right? It's the presence of goddess, it's the presence of guides, it's the presence of spirit, it's the presence of magic, it's the presence of energy. So all of those things are going on as well. When I think about the word presence, I'm thinking about what other presences am I bringing in? What other presences am I aware of? And even the presence of something like an idea can be really zoomed in on by using presence as a 2024 word of power, because I think that presence really reminds me that, like, hey, if something's floating around in your brain box, if something keeps coming to you, if something keeps occurring to you, notice its presence, write it down, make something of it, jot it on a post-it note, remind yourself to return to it. If there is a dream that you had the night before and its presence keeps making itself known through you recalling it, write it down in your dream journal. Take it as a potential sign or symbol. Think about what else you would do with that information. Think about what those images mean and what those words mean that came up in the dream. If there is a presence of an idea for a spell that you want to do, or a ritual that you want to do, or a change that you want to make with your altar or with your devotional work, whatever it might be, notice the presence of that idea. Don't scrub it out or push it away or demean it or downplay it. Really think, oh, there's a presence of that. It keeps coming to me, so I should do something with it, you know? So the next word that I chose for 2024 as a kind of guiding force, if you will, is the word zest. I love the word zest. I love the word zesty. I'm really into the word zestiness, okay? I'm really into that idea of like bite and burst and punch and pith and flavour, you know, sharpness, basically. I know that for a lot of people, zesty just means energetic, and it means kind of like, you know, that you're going balls to the wall, full pelt with whatever you're doing. But for me, there's a kind of different idea to the word zest and what it means. It is about get up and go, but it's also about gutsiness. I think zest for me is really about full flavour. Instead of doing something and playing it safe, you know, for example, with things that I want to create for my business, with videos that I want to make, with workshops or anything else that I might make in 2024, instead of playing it safe, instead of dumbing it down, instead of sort of like, you know, making it very risk-free, I think the word zest brings up this kind of idea of punch and something more snappy, something, like I said, more gutsy, something that really puts me in the mind of doing something different, doing something that has a very specific flavour to it and that doesn't necessarily have to appeal to everybody. But for those it does appeal to, it really appeals to them because they have been kind of looking for that flavouring. They've been looking for that kind of like difference, I suppose. So zest for me is about like making something more tasty in a sense. And I'm thinking about that as well creatively. And I'm thinking about that in terms of my spiritual practice. I might even be thinking about zest in terms of what I wear. You know, just thinking about how I might want to make it a little bit more different and add a little bit more punch and flavour to it. So zest is really more in that kind of vein when it comes to how I'm going to be using it for 2024. I want to approach things that I do this year and really think about whether or not it's got any sort of like tanginess to it. You know, does it have a punch? And if not, how can I add that in to the mix? How can I bring it to the fore so that I feel like it really reflects more of the passion and the enthusiasm that I want to put into it, and also that it goes over to whoever I might want it to go over to in a more enthused way, whether that's to my clients or potential clients, whether it's to friends. If I'm writing a love letter, then how zesty is it? You know, how much flavor have I put into it? If I'm doing a workout, am I playing it safe? Am I doing what I did last time? Am I being boring? Am I not really bringing something interesting to it? Could I try a new workout? Could I try new things with my Pilates equipment? Like, what could I do to make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more like, oh, that was zesty, you know? So I'm definitely going to be thinking about that, as well as zest having more of its like common meaning, which is, you know, eagerness, enthusiasm, passion, that sense that there is like a extra layer to something that makes it more interesting, has more zeal, you know, is more kind of like, it pings, you know, it pings. The manner in which I do something when I'm being zesty about it has moxie. It has guts, it has dance, it has something to it that gives it vitality. I think zest is something that I want to put into the mix, essentially. So when it's not there, I want to see it. And when I test something out to see if it's working for me this year, I want to ask myself, does it have zest? Like, where is the vibrancy here? Where is that burst of flavour that makes me very excited to be involved? And when I'm looking at things that I might be interested in, books that I want to read, you know, events that I want to go to, things that I want to try out, workshops I want to do, I again want to ask myself that question with that stuff that I might be choosing to imbibe. Is it zesty? Is it zesty enough for me? Does it give me that sense that I would like to add a little bit of it to my plate? The word zest is quite an intense word, and I think of myself overall as being pretty intense. And I think things work best for me creatively, spiritually, socially, when there is that intensity. And I'm not talking about like doing something really scary or doing something that is really like necessarily illicit or irresponsible necessarily, but I'm talking about something that has a bit more pizzazz. It's got a bit more pluck to it. You know, we're doing something that's a bit different. We're going about things or talking about things in a different way. When I'm thinking about my creative work, I'm looking for more dynamism pretty much all the time. I'm thinking about whether or not something has been done before and whether or not I can put more of my own particular flavour into it. So I think zest is also about making it mine. It's about putting my juice and my personality into it as well. Thinking about how I'm maybe customizing the experience or customizing whatever it is I'm making or doing so that it reflects me. And so that it's not just something that is done the same way as others do, or done the way that it's recommended in the book or recommended by that teacher or whatever. So I think Zest is also about customization for me in a way, really thinking about how I can make something my own. Zest makes me think of colour. It makes me think of vibrancy. It makes me think of sparkle. It makes me think of sprightliness. When I bring a zesty attitude to something, I think it most of all means that I can inspire others, you know, to experience that zest as well. So in a way, it's kind of a generous mind frame to be in. It's kind of a generous way of walking into a situation or an event or whatever, is to bring some zest with you that can be shared out, that can be infectious in the best possible way, that can really help others to lean into how they want to be zesty as well. So yeah, I think Zest is going to be an interesting one for me in 2024. I'm expecting it to come through in a lot of different areas of my life, but I think I don't want to think too much about how I want it to come through creatively or spiritually or in business or whatever. I also want to think about how it can come through in things like my attitude to my self-care and my attitude towards boring chores that I don't want to do, you know. I want to approach everything with zest and not just the things that make me feel zesty by default. You know, those things that actually I feel are pretty devoid of zest in life, that I find really quite dull and quite trying and quite cloying. I want to approach those things with zest as well. I think that's going to be the hard part. That's going to be the bit that I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, I don't know if I can do this, but I think just really working with that word will help. I also think that for the word zest, maybe for all of these words, but definitely for the word zest, I'm going to make a private Pinterest board that helps me to really tap into what this word means. And that is a good suggestion for anyone who's working with words, you know, words of the year, words of power for the year, words that you're going to be using as your guiding forces. If you think that it's kind of an abstract thing to do, or at least one of your words feels like quite an abstract word, do a Pinterest board, do a collage, write down a list of synonyms that you feel are connected to that word in the way that you want to carry it out during the year. Because I think we can get lost over the course of the year. We can really get lost with what our words of power or what our sort of words of the year really mean to us, and how we're supposed to be showing up and really incorporating the meaning of those words into our lives. So it can be useful to have kind of at least a visual sort of marker that helps you say, oh yeah, that's what it means. That's what it means. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's what it was all about when I chose it, you know? And so, yeah, I wanted to make note of that as well. My final word of the year is vigor. I definitely need this word. I feel like I dealt with a bit of sluggishness, experiences of sluggishness in 2023. Again, I do not shame myself for that. I know in a lot of ways why that was, but I do feel I'm coming back to a point now where I can have a little bit more life in me, a bit more get up and go. I want to really sort of like push for more of my energy going towards more of my pursuits and passions. And I think vigor is a really beautiful word in terms of what it means for me. Like, it's strength, it's life force, it's enthusiasm, it's effort, it's hard work, it's perseverance, it's resilience, you know. It's really sort of like believing that I can have that vigor to be able to go over the finish line, to be able to finish what I started, to be able to make commitments and stick to those commitments. I think vigor, out of all three of the words I've chosen, is the most serious and adult, I must say. I think vigor is the one that intimidates me most of all, to be honest with you, because I think it means having drive. It means being enterprising. It means really like putting your pedal to the fucking metal. And so because of that, there's a bit of a tough loving element to the word for me. And I think that I need that. And sometimes when you choose your words of the year, or you choose just your aims of the year, you will tend to like skip over. I know I have in the past. I've skipped over a lot of things that I think are just like, oh, that's too tough love. That's too hard. That's too harsh. You know, that's kind of putting me off. But I think in the last 10 years or so, in the last decade of my life, through my 30s, I've been much more about that kind of like bitch slap type of inspiration, where I know that I really need to make sure I stay in the driver's seat and I don't give up and I don't make excuses. And so I do need one of those more tough loving words. I think vigor is that for me. I'm one of those people that tends to give themselves a little bit of a motivational sort of like army boot camp sergeant kind of pep talk when I'm feeling a bit low. And sometimes I will admit there's a couple of friends that I do ask to send one of them to me. If I cannot really compose one in my internal monologue, I will ask someone to send a kind of like tough loving bitch slap message to me. I've also been known to record some for myself so I can play them back when I'm feeling a little bit weak or a little bit like, you know, making excuses, feeling like lazy or like I want to hibernate or isolate or kind of ostrich the whole thing and like stick my head in the sand. I have been known to go back and listen to my own voice or read my own words when I was in a much more peppy, driven, tough kind of mood, and that will always get me back into the driver's seat. I think for me, vigor is a word that represents like giving it some fucking muscle. Give it some welly, girl. You've got it to give. You know you have. Like, don't make those excuses. Get a grip, chin up, pull your socks up, put your chest out, put your shoulders back, and get the fuck on with business, you know? So again, that tough loving element is there for sure. And another thing about vigor that I really love is that whenever I think about the word vigor, I always think about what I need to be able to create vigor in my life. So for a very long time now, I've tried to be really mature about the fact that you cannot expect vigor, strength, you know, like get up and go. You can't expect that from yourself if you have not hydrated, slept, given yourself adequate nutrition, given yourself adequate rest, you know, been realistic and reasonable with yourself about what a rest period really looks like, and giving yourself enough time like away from things that drain you so that your battery then can recharge so that you can go again. I think there's been times in my life, and I know this is probably true of most people watching this, there have been times in my life where I've expected a lot of fucking vigor from myself with little to no input that would kind of justify me expecting that kind of output. We don't do that anymore around these here parts, okay? Maddoxville is no longer about that. I will not expect vigor from myself when I'm very unwell. I will not expect vigor from myself when I'm understandably in an emotional spiral and I just need to breathe, and that is all I can expect from myself. You know, I will not expect vigor from myself if I'm absolutely burned the fuck out. I won't do it anymore. So when I think about vigor, I don't think about just like making myself show vigor and kick and liveliness and lust for life, regardless of what else is going on. I want to think about what it is that I can give to myself that would enable me to realistically expect that I would be able to demonstrate vigor. Because if I haven't had those things, I don't want to expect that shit from myself. You know, I can't show some pluck and some fucking muscle about a situation if I haven't been given any means by which I can actually generate those qualities. If I want to be industrious, if I want to be in motion, if I want to come to the fore in my own life and really demonstrate to myself and other people that I've got it to give and I'm in my energy and I push forward, then I have to know that strong desire for success, that strong desire to be industrious comes from a place of self-love. Otherwise, what am I doing? What am I doing? And also, what am I teaching? You know, I'm giving people this advice year on year about processes to promote self-love and self-care and self-nourishment and self-counsel and all that stuff. And I'm taking that all from myself. I'm stripping that away from myself and expecting 100% performance. Like, that's just bullshit. So vigor is also a way for me to call myself out on my BS. I no longer want to ever, insofar as possible, okay, everybody makes mistakes, no one's perfect, but as far as I can, I never want to be someone who expects themselves to go over the finish line when they haven't eaten breakfast, they haven't slept adequately, you know, they haven't had therapy, they haven't, whatever it is that I feel like I personally need to do to be able to feel that vigor is a reasonable expectation. So the question will always be, if I want to see a flurry of activity, if that is my hope for the week or the day, if I feel like I'm looking at a calendar month and I'm like, yeah, there's going to be all this power, there's going to be all this stuff happening. Okay, but wait a minute, what are you putting into yourself and what are you giving to yourself in order to be able to have that expectation be even remotely realistic? You know, there's got to be that other piece to the puzzle as well. I can't expect vigor while I'm running on fumes. So those are my 3 words of the year. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown of why I will be using them and how I will be using them. I would love to know, what are your words of the year, if indeed you have any? Reveal to us all what you are using. And if you're using any quotes or any affirmations, you know, any phrases, like I said, I might sort of add those things later on. But for now, these are my 3 words of the year that I'm going to take through 2024. And I'm really excited to see how focus upon those words will help me to up the ante with any challenges I come across and anything I want to get done. Thank you for allowing me to share with you. I've really enjoyed this one. It's been very, very chill and informal and just nice. Okay, much love, darlings. Until next time, blessed be. Mwah, take care of yourselves.